What's up guys, it's Chili here, and last time you might remember that there was a lot of controversy around the god portraits for Age of Mythology Retold, and it looks like the devs actually listened to us. It's pretty cool. You're looking at all new portraits for every single god in the game. I don't know how they managed to do this in such a short amount of time. But in this video, we're gonna do the same thing we did last time. We're gonna take a look at every single god portrait in the game and do some comparisons so that you guys can see everything that's changed. As a reminder, the game is coming out on September 4th, which is just 1 week away. But if you got the premium edition, then Christmas has come early because you are able to play today. If you are watching this video, you are able to play the game. And before we dive into it, if you guys like what you see here, please hit that like and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more Age of Mythology content. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, as you can see, I updated my previous little graphic here with all of the new god portraits, and we're just gonna get into it. Last time this took me like 20 some odd minutes to get through. Well, actually the recording took way longer, but let's see if we can get through this in a reasonable amount of time. We're gonna start back here with Hades. So the original Hades has that classic look. It's got the horizontal crest on that Corinthian style helmet. Love the look. I'm a little bit disappointed that the retold version doesn't have that horizontal crest, but we got all these references in the new one. We got the bident, as I mentioned before, and if we look at the latest version, they're keeping that vertical crest and they're going with the bident again, and I love the background so much more than before. We see the same kind of, what are these, stalagmites, as well as the Cerberus in the background. This is a really cool reference right here. Hades' guard dog of the underworld. We see the same chain motif as well as this like key thing really being emphasized. I'm not sure what this is a reference to, maybe just Hades being like the warden of the underworld or something like that. In general, he looks a lot more like not emaciated. Like the previous version left him kind of like thin, whereas this one he's like kind of buffed out. I personally still like the original the best, so I would probably be going with this one, but pretty good update. All right, the original Zeus classic, you can't go wrong with this one. The one that we saw previously in Retold has just abs on abs and a really weird AI generated looking background, but then the new one here, okay, see, this looks more like what classic Zeus should look like. I mean, he's still buff as hell, but he's not like muscles on muscles. The background actually looks like someone drew it this time. The stairs actually go somewhere. We see actual columns rather than the columns kind of blending together back here in a really weird way. In a way, I'll kind of miss the sheen and the lightning effects on the previous one. I felt like that was actually done pretty well, but the new one just like it just has that Greek feel to it. It's got those Greek accents on the sides of the tunic over here. I love it. This is a way more fitting Zeus. Moving on to Poseidon. The new one had the slightly weird kind of off-center body that was a little bit awkwardly shaped. The arm is a little bit weirdly long, and the face is kind of doing like this 1,000-yard stare that's not really looking at anything. The new Poseidon, oh man, the new Poseidon, just like the Zeus, it just looks so much better. I love that all three Greek gods have that kind of forward-facing, kind of challenging stare going on. They're all kind of looking directly at you. I love that he's actually doing something now. The pose is a lot less awkward than before, and the blue eyes is an interesting addition. It seems like all three of the gods have this like kind of blue eyes motif now, which they didn't previously have. Up next we got Apollo, and I think previously we all agreed that the retold version of Apollo just a little bit too awkward with the like the weird arrow and the hand thing here, and like where's he aiming, and then just like the background looking really odd and like I don't know, kind of AI generated looking. The new one, okay, if I'm being honest with you, the new one also looks a little bit uncanny. Like the face is still a little bit awkward, but I mean it's better. It's definitely better. Like you can definitely tell that he's actually holding this arrow. He's actually resting the arrow on his fingers. Like it feels a little bit more natural the way he's holding his bow and pointing it. It's a little bit awkward mainly because of the face and I guess the body pose, as well as his background is kind of, he's like standing on the road. This is a little bit weird. I think a net upgrade for sure, but not quite as classic as the original one. Moving on to Hermes. Now I didn't have much of an issue with the retold version of Hermes actually. I remember I said it was a little bit dopey looking, but other than that it's like not that bad. The hand's a little bit awkward, but the new one here, it's okay. I would say it's still pretty good. It's kind of on par. The helmet is definitely a lot more accurate to what the Hermes helmet should look like, rather than just kind of like a cap over here. I think the main thing that's like throwing me off with this new one is like, one, the pose is a little bit awkward, and two, the face is a little bit too, I don't know, cocky looking. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is better. The previous Hermes, like, it's kind of classic, but like it also looks really awkward if you kind of stare at it a little bit too long. Moving on to Hephaestus. One of the issues I had with the retold version of Hephaestus is that it had the kind of Art Deco vibe going with it. I think there was an artist here that just kind of like drew in this style perhaps, but it just made for really weird proportions. Like some of the columns here, like this column here looks strangely off, and then Hephaestus himself just looks like, you know, he's like really pondering life, looking at his hammer, and he's just roided out. He's got all these muscles going on with him. And Hephaestus, like traditionally, he's, you know, he's muscular, but he's more like a sinewy muscular, which is kind of what the old one captured really effectively. And he's also lame, and they definitely did not capture his lame lame feel. One thing I want to call out here is even with the new version, he's still muscular as hell, and he's still not like showing his lame side at all. Maybe this is like pre-lame to Festus, but certainly I like that at least his face looks a little bit more haggard compared to the previous one. He's just like smooth as fuck, and he's still he's still staring a little bit. I don't think he's staring at the right thing. His eyes are kind of pointed down towards, I guess, like this section of his tongs. I'm not sure if that's where he wants to be looking. I think he wants to be looking at his whatever he's hitting over here instead. In general, I would say it's a net positive, but I would have loved to rather see like a lamed version of Hephaestus being represented. I thought Hades 2 did a really good representation of Hephaestus, and it was very creative. All right, moving on to Athena. Classic Athena is classic. You can't go wrong with that one. The new Athena, we called it out as being a little bit, it's okay. It looks kind of like Cassandra from Assassin's Creed, but the only downside to this one is that it looks a little bit generic. It still has all the right callbacks. It has the owl, it has the armor, it has the shield, the aegis that Athena has. And so it's overall like okay. I found this one pretty acceptable, but then the new one here, it's interesting. Okay, it seems to have kept the same kind of armor design. The artist clearly took inspiration from the previous armor's design. We still have the same owl here, but she's no longer wearing her shield now, which is a little bit weird. I feel like the aegis is kind of very representative of Athena, so it's a little bit weird that they would take that off. Her face is a little bit less interesting compared to this one over here. I really like how, like, I don't know, stern and Greek she looks. I also love the way they did to her hair. It's like she's like sweating from battle or something like that. The new one it's more like a storybook is how I would say it. For that reason, I don't hate it. I think all of the new portraits in this version are like, they kind of capture that kind of storybook feel for the god portraits rather than this kind of like AI generated trading card art that they had in the older version of Retold. Moving on to Ares, classic Ares with that Mediterranean beard. It's got that helmet. The new one that we had in Retold was very awkward looking. I commented about the helmet and the forehead here, like just looking really weirdly shaded. And the fire sword is just also a very weird artistic choice because I don't think Ares has anything associated with fire sword. Sadly, the fire sword still got kept and the beard is still not curly, but this is a much better rendition of Ares, if I'm just going to be honest. It just looks like actually someone drew it, whereas the previous one just had some kind of weird uncanny feel to it that just looks slightly AI generated. The fire sword is still something that I'm pretty confused about. It would have been nice to have, rather than like this kind of open-faced Corinthian style helmet, to have the closed one like this one. I don't know exactly what you would call this. The closest thing I can think of is like Pericles. Like Pericles is oftentimes depicted with this kind of closed-faced Corinthian helmet that kind of rests on his forehead. It would have been nice to kind of go with that design instead of this open-faced one, because it just looks like he's got like infinity forehead going on again. Moving on to Aphrodite. The previous Aphrodite, a little bit racy, kind of showing off the little bit of a side boob over here. Good reference to the golden apple. I made the atrocious, the unforgivable mistake to say that Aphrodite bestowed the golden apple onto Paris when in fact it was actually Paris that bestowed the golden apple onto Aphrodite. Huge apologies. Big thank you to all the comments who reminded me. The retold version of Aphrodite that we had previously had this kind of Cliffs of Dover look going on the side that looked a little bit awkward, and the waves on one side of her body did not match the waves on the other side. The new one, oh my god, this one's so much better. Holy crap, this one's so much better. Like, this just looks actually illustrated by hand. Like, you can just tell that there's like something different here. This one just looks a little bit too smooth and a little bit too perfect in some ways, and this one just looks like an illustration that you'd see in a children's book or something like that. I like that they kind of covered up a little bit more. They kept her as a redhead. That's really cool. They kept her on the water. In my head, that's referencing the Botticelli Birth of Venus work. They added this like dove thing. I'm not sure what the dove is doing, because Aphrodite I don't think has any references to doves. All in all, 10 out of 10 with Aphrodite. I really like this one. I love the background's like all pink now too. It kind of evokes that kind of love feel. All right, moving on to Artemis. Classic Artemis always looked a little bit weird to me, but kind of did a good job of evoking that she's like a huntress. The new one, they kind of kept the horn bow design, but then there's a lot of awkward things going on with this new one. The background's a little bit weird. The dress and the lighting feels a little bit awkward. Her pose just also looks a little bit weird. Her eyes, like what is she staring at over there? I don't know. I would say this is a huge improvement. The main reason, again, the illustrated feel. This just looks like something you find in a children's book. I like that she's got robes that doesn't look like she's out to party. Like, this looks like some robes that she's about to go to one of Dionysus's like festivals or something like that. Like, this one looks like she's actually like, she's traveling. She's got like this kind of cloak going on with her. I really like that. Moving on to Dionysus. Okay, if I'm being honest, this one's really plain looking. Like the classic Dionysus, just he's a little bit rounder. You know, I kind of like that. The one that we got in Retold looks like Eric Bana. He's Hector from Troy, if you've seen that movie. And you know, he's a little bit too muscular, but you know, it's okay. It's okay. It's not terrible. This more recent one is like, it looks like an illustration, but it's just so boring. The background's really boring. Like he's low-key like giving me some bedroom eyes. Like it's a little bit weird. It feels like he's trying to hit on me rather than just like party with me. So I don't love the design all that much. Moving on to Hera. Classic Hera, a little bit boring as well. The one that we got previously for Retold had the good references with the peacock cape here as well as her staff, but a little bit too much of like a perfect idealized face going on here. It just made her look a little bit kind of uncanny valley, AI generated kind of vibe. The new one, honestly, whoa, I kind of like this direction that they went with her. She's a bit more round. She's a lot more motherly looking. Honestly, they could have gone and aged her a little bit more. She's a little bit young looking here. I like the staff and I like that they kept the peacock cape here. I'm not sure what's happening in the background though. She's like hanging out in some hedgerows or something like that. She's like gonna steal the goblet of fire or something. All right, we're looking at the Egyptian gods next. Looking at Osiris. Classic Osiris always looked like a Yu-Gi-Oh card to me. The new one, you know, I didn't have that many issues with it. It looks pretty good for the most part. It kind of evokes the old one pretty well. The main issue was the fact that he had an extra finger here, but they actually, I think they fixed that for a period of time. But then more recently, we have this one. The new Osiris is badass. I love this. This is so good. Once again, it looks hand illustrated. I love that. Look at his face. He's like all emaciated and zombie looking. In the original one, he's just green, and I'm not even sure what this like black line is going down his neck. But in this new one, he looks like a mummy. And you know, if you played the campaign, spoiler alert, he's kind of a mummy. Going on to Nephthys. I don't exactly remember how to pronounce that. I did not have much of an issue with her new design. Actually, I felt like her updated Retold design was actually one of the better ones for sure. She looks a little bit more like kind of model-esque in the new one, whereas the previous one she looked a lot more like skinny, like a mummy. And looking at the more recent one, they didn't change the design that much. She still has that kind of like model-esque look. They even kind of draped the same ribbon over her face in the same position, and I love that this side of her is like kind of decaying like a mummy. The previous Retold version that we got was pretty damn good. I would not have been against keeping that one, even in line with all these other new arts that we have. Moving on to, well, it's not Hathor, it's actually Sobek, because Hathor got replaced by Sobek, and I personally think Hathor, she's such an important Egyptian goddess. She could have her place as one of the primary major gods for the Egyptians in a future DLC pack. The Sobek art that we had in the previous version of Retold, honestly, I didn't hate it. It was pretty good, but the new one, oh my god. I think the new one is definitely an improvement. Look at the mouth. That just looks so creepy in like the perfect way. This is just a great look. I think the previous Pet Sobeks kind of looked 3D modeled in some way. I think they 3D modeled it and then posed it here and then just kind of like did some visual effects on top of that, whereas the new one, you can clearly tell that it's illustrated. Just in general, Sobek is looking badass. I love this look. This is like a 10 out of 10. Looking at Ra, the old Ra, very classic. Love the way his armor looks. The one that we got previously over the summer, it looked a little bit weird, mainly because the bird head didn't quite fit the rest of the body. It looked like they were coming from two different art pieces almost, but I didn't hate it. It was okay. I like the kind of azure looking drapes that we have here. And the more recent one, well, I gotta say this, it definitely looks illustrated. I don't know if I love it the way that the original looked. Ra's a little bit more angry looking now, and I like that they emphasize the sun behind him a lot more. It looks illustrated. It's a little bit generic looking, but I don't hate it. Moving on to Isis, the new one that we got. When I initially looked at it, it looked a little bit off. I wasn't a big fan of it, but the more I looked at it, I actually didn't hate it all that much. It had a lot of cool references, and it definitely took a lot of inspirations from the original design. But the updated version of Isis, I think, is way better. I love that she has a more heroic pose here. She's kind of walking up, facing us. They got rid of the netting here. I saw one of the comments say that this kind of netted weave actually comes from an archaeological find from ancient Egypt, which is really, really cool. I would have liked it if they kept it, actually. In general, I love the way that she looks here. I would say that the art style doesn't quite have that same like storybook illustrated look. Got more of like a League of Legends splash art look to me. Moving on to Set. I thought it was a little bit uncanny how he looked. He looked almost like 3D generated, but in general, I didn't have that many issues with this version of Set. He looked kind of alien-like, and that looked pretty cool. I actually like this depiction of Set. Moving on to the updated version that we got in Retold here. This is interesting. The ears are, oh, they're kind of clipped off. Oh, actually, that's just how this animal looks, I guess. The ears just have like this kind of clipping going on here. This one, kind of like the Isis depiction and like the Raw depiction, it looks a little bit more like a League of Legends splash art. It's not too different from what we have in the previous Retold version of set. The head is a lot bigger though. That's the main thing I'm noticing here, is that the head is so big. But in general, this doesn't quite feel as major god vibe as some of the other ones. Moving on to Bast. Now, Bast is where the controversy began. A lot of people had issues with her very awkward looking pose, her cat face that just really did not fit the rest of her body, as well as this little symbol that she has here. I forgot the name of the symbol, but you can clearly tell that this line back here kind of overlaps the backside of her instrument as opposed to going through it, which is just showing some weird inaccuracies. Looking at the new one, and oh my god, they really updated Bast. I think the developers really wanted to make sure that Bast would have a very, very, very big makeover, because this is a completely different character as far as I can tell. Gone are the cutesy eyes, gone is the cutesy little pose here. Now she's a badass. Now she's standing in front of the eclipse. That's her god power. I love that reference. That's so cool. I love the color of her skin here. It's like so dark, contrasted with that red. It makes everything just look so badass. The way she's holding out her hand, her instrument here, you can tell they definitely went through the detail, made sure that this is absolutely accurate. Every single prong here has a hole, and they're not accidentally overlapping anything. That's really cool. God damn, this is a 10 out of 10. They did such a good job with this art. Next up, we have Horus. The original Horus looks like he's going out golfing. The updated version that we got for Horus, his eyes are kind of looking in two different directions. Again, the bird face just doesn't really fit the rest of the body, so it just looks a little bit awkward. And then I remember calling out the dimensions of this fan axe. Looking at the new one, oh my god. Okay, Horus, damn. This is what Ra should look like, I feel like. This is like some major god energy going on here. This guy needs to be upgraded or something. Like, oh my god, look at him. The fan axe looks badass. The way the sun kind of has that halo effect behind his head. And this is a tornado. Oh, that's so cool. There's a giant ass tornado going on behind him, which is a reference to his god power. That is too cool. This, oh my god, this is a 10 out of 10. Next up, we got Anubis. And the classic Anubis is kind of like you died and then you got the light shining up from above and Anubis is over here judging you. The retold version of Anubis didn't really capture that feel. He kind of looks like a Prince of Persia type of character. He's got some clipping of this little arak. I mean the Kopesh. I've been watching way too much Game of Thrones, but yeah, the Kopesh is kind of clipping into his ear or something like that, or maybe his ear's just kind of shaped like that. It's a little bit confusing, but mainly just the fact that he has this kind of rogue feel just doesn't quite fit the Anubis identity. Even though in game the Anubites are kind of like a roguish type of myth unit, but historically speaking, or at least accurate to the mythology, he's more of a judgment type of character, and we'll see. Oh my god. Okay, this is I don't know what to think about this one. He's not quite the full judge kind of Anubis, and he's not quite this kind of full rogue Anubis. He's almost like a warrior Anubis now. He's got the Kopesh again. His eyes are glowing blue now instead of glowing yellow. Previously they were just black. I kind of like the shaded black look. His armor, this is a interesting armor styling. It's a lot more intricate compared to what he had in the previous version of Retold. Oh my god, and the forearm here, this is bursting. This is a little bit too muscular here. It's all right. I don't know if this is Anubis for me. Again, it looks like a League of Legends champion, but I don't hate it. It's all right. Next, we're looking at Sekhmet. The new version of Sekhmet that we got in Retold, I actually felt like this was one of the better ones for Retold. I like her pose, I like her lion face, I like the way they did her hair. I like the fact that she has hair, like the previous Sekhmet didn't even have hair. Looking at the latest one, they kept the same kind of hairstyle, although I personally like the dreads kind of going all the way down to her shoulders. This is a little bit too short. The face also looks a little bit more awkward here. Maybe the neck is just a little bit too long. I personally would still actually prefer the previous Retold version, I think, compared to the new one here. Moving on to Toth. The original Toth always looked really cute. In the Retold version, they made him almost alien looking, but I actually felt like this was also pretty good. It almost looks illustrated, and it has a lot of really great references to how Toth was actually depicted in the hieroglyphics. I felt like this one was pretty good, actually, and the new one, oh my god. Definitely a lot more, much more illustrated feel. The eyes are really intense here. Actually, the way the scroll curves looks a little bit awkward. I don't know how this scroll is like kind of bending down like this. If it, this logic doesn't quite make sense to me. I would say in comparing the two, I actually prefer the old Retold version of Toth better. just because it has a more kind of timeless feel to it, whereas the new one, it does look more illustrated, but it also kind of has, again, that League of Legends champion kind of vibe going on with it. Finally, we're on Ptah, or Ta. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly. Old Ta always had really weird abs going on here. The new one, the symbols and the depiction here is pretty accurate. I like that they made him green, which is what he looks like in the hieroglyphics. It's actually a lot more accurate than what we had in the previous version of Ta. Okay, I like this a lot better. Okay, like the previous version of Retold Ta that we got, the head size compared to the hand size just looks really, really awkward. Now we got an actual dude. He's got some broad ass shoulders, man. Oh my god. And he's like he's like an engineer, right? This is a 10 out of 10. We're doing Norse gods next. We're looking at Hel. A lot of people were complaining about how the new Hel, even though she has one side of her body more decrepit looking, or at least down here, her face is still relatively untouched, still kind of got that model look. So people were kind of hoping for her to look a little bit more like you know, burned, kind of like in her previous version. Okay, interesting. Okay, yeah, so she definitely has the burned look going on half of her face now. For the new one, she's kind of almost hiding the darker side, which is interesting. It's kind of telling a little bit more of a story. Maybe she's like shy about the darker side, but at the same time she's holding out her decrepit hands, so she can't be that shy about it. Moving on to Baldur. The classic version of Baldur was always delivering on that jawline. The newer one that we got, this like shirt that he's got here with this weird shoulder thing, just kind of screams AI a little bit. It just looks a bit awkward. And the late, oh, what the fuck? We got, what's this guy's name? Fabio. This guy looks like Fabio, which is actually great if you think about it. Like, Baldur kind of should look like Fabio. His hand is, this is really demure. This is really dainty. I don't know. I'm not sure what he's doing with his hand here. He's like preparing for a fist bump. They kept this weird shoulder padding with his cloth. I'm not sure if that's the look. It looks more natural in the new one. Oh man, it's hard to say. Which one do I like more? Honestly, the Fabio version of Baldur, it's better just because it's so ridiculous, but it's a bit uncanny. Like if you compare this version of Baldur to like I don't know, like this version of Poseidon, like the art style is just completely different. Like this looks like it's been illustrated. This looks like it's almost kind of evoking the original art style. It's a little bit more, has that painterly feel. Whereas the Baldur version, it kind of looks like it was done by the same artist that did the Apollo here. Just a little bit more realistic, kind of 3D looking, and it's a bit uncanny. Actually, now I think about it, zoomed out, the head looks a little bit oversized for the rest of the body, right? He's got such a like a masculine head, but then his like his neck is really thick, and then the shoulders are really thin in the forearms here. I feel like they could have scaled the head down a little bit. It looks a little bit uncanny. I don't think I love this one actually. The more I'm looking at it, but I love the Fabio reference. I think that's a great direction to go in. Moving on to Thor, classic Thor, 10 out of 10. You can't go wrong with that one. The new Thor that we got in Retold, it looks a little bit weird, but overall I didn't have that many complaints with it. Looking at the more recent Thor, wow, okay, this is great. No complaints here. 10 out of 10. This is absolutely what Thor should look like. I kind of wish he had the classic Thor vibe going on here. I don't know what it was, but something about this just like he kind of feels like a mountain man, you know what I mean? Like he kind of feels like kind of rugged. Whereas this version of Thor looks a little bit more like almost like a Marvel hero. I like that they made him thicker. That's pretty cool. I know that in God of War they made Thor like a really thick boy, so it's cool seeing like different body depictions. Moving on to Tyr. The classic Tyr had one missing hand here, but other than that he didn't have very many distinct identifiers. The new version of Tyr that we got in the previous version of Retold looked really awkward, mainly because he's just chilling. He's looking at us. He's like a little bit like, this is my life, and he's got his hand being bitten off by Fenrir over here. Okay, there we go. This is what it should look like, I feel. This is a more realistic depiction of Tyr, just in the fact that he's actually reacting. He's like, oh, I'm getting bit by Fenrir, like get back. If I was to change one thing, it would be that to make Fenrir a little bit more noticeable. It's weird that he's kind of sharing the silhouette of Tyr here. It almost makes it look like Tyr's wearing Fenrir as a fur coat rather than Fenrir biting him. Moving on to Freya. The classic Freya had that very, very illustrated look. Actually, I might have accidentally grabbed a fan art version of Freya, just because I think this is actually illustrated. In which case, they did a really good job, because this looks exactly like what I remember Freya looking like. The newer version of Freya, it's got a little bit more of that like barmaid kind of feel with the clothing, but I mean the old one also kind of had a similar vibe. And oh, whoa, oh shit, oh my god, okay. The new Freya is intense. She's like definitely like a warrior shield maiden here. It's all the more awkward now that she's kind of showing leg here. If they're kind of going for this like fighter version of Freya, her face just looks a little bit a little bit British. Am I crazy? Like her face looks a little bit British. Maybe it's just the teeth here. Okay, I think this guy's name is Njord. And the original version had this kind of seaweed hair. And you can see that they tried to keep that motif with the new retold version, but the more recent retold version completely got rid of it. And oh, wait, is this guy cross-eyed? This guy looks kind of cross-eyed, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, he's definitely cross-eyed. I like the seal here. This is a really cool addition. He's a lot more of a jovial character here, but he's still muscular as hell. Oh my god. They kept the same armor styling. They kept the same cape here that they had in the previous version of Retold. I like that he doesn't have this kind of green water effect anymore. This was always a little bit strange that his ore and the water here was all green. It would have been nice to keep the kind of kelp beard and kelp hair. That was kind of a defining feature of Njord. Looking onto Heimdall, I never liked the original version of Heimdall. It always looked a little bit simplistic. The previous version of Heimdall that we got in Retold, his pose was a little bit sassy looking. It just looked a little awkward. He's showing a lot of ass here. I don't know what's up with that. Okay, and this is great. The new version of Heimdall, it just fixes everything that we saw was an issue previously. He's got the Bifrost. The Bifrost looks beautiful in the sky behind him. That is a really great depiction of the Bifrost. It even looks like the Bifrost's lighting. Okay, see, this is where the like artist's touch is actually coming in. You can see that the light from the Bifrost is actually reflecting onto his armor, onto the lighting of his horn here. Even his sword here has like some of that rainbow reflection going on. That's great. That is really cool. That's what really elevates this piece. Whereas the previous version of Heimdall, just like, you know, he has the rainbow, but it almost looks like plastered on behind him. You don't see the light affecting the rest of him at all. It's just a white light accent all along his face here. It's just a much better direction to go in. It's super cool. Love this one. 10 out of 10. Moving on to Forseti. Forseti in the classic one just looked like a dude with an axe. Moving on to the newer version of Forseti, I felt like this one was okay. This was one of the ones I didn't hate this one very much. Actually, now I'm looking at it, his body is a little bit, I don't know, is this belt in the right position? I feel like the way he's posed up on top suggests that his butt should be sitting against the back of this chair, but then this belt here actually kind of suggests that his butt is kind of leaning forward a little bit, kind of slouching in the chair. That's a little bit awkward, but I had to pay attention to notice that one. In general, it looks pretty good. I don't hate this one, but oh, whoa, this guy's got aura, dude. Look at the rainbow kind of just emanating off of him. This guy's a badass. Wait, they made Forseti so cool. Why did they do that? Forseti's like this old man that like gives you trolls and like a healing well. The new version just like, what the fuck, this guy's gonna like kill you. Like previously, this axe over here looked like he just finished building a house. This version of the axe looks like, yeah, he just like, I don't know, chopped up these logs or something like that. And then this guy looks like a berserker. He's about to go like chop you up with this like giant Dane axe looking thing. Damn, this is really cool art. This is like, it's a little bit too cool, you know what I mean? Like, this is like some major god like aura going on with this guy. A little bit too much here. Moving on to Bragi, the god of the skalds, the god of the bards. There's not a whole lot to say about the old ones. We're just gonna, what? Okay. Yeah, this is it. This is so much better. This is a 10 out of 10. Holy shit. Wait, I actually didn't, I didn't have an issue with the previous version of Bragi, but it was just a little bit boring looking, I guess. The new one is just, does such a good job of capturing that like illustrated kind of storybook feel. He's got like this like colorful music going off of the harp. I really like the direction of this one. This is perfect. He looks like he came straight out of Tolkien. Like even this background here looks like it's in Hobbiton. Moving on to Odin, a lot of people were calling out the fact that he wasn't holding Gungnir. He's holding this like random axe, and I pointed out when I was doing the side-by-side comparison that like his armor comes straight from the original depiction, his headpiece comes straight from the original depiction, even the axe comes from the original depiction here. So like, you know, the artist did a pretty good job of actually representing Odin based on the original work here, at least in my opinion. But the new one, that's Odin. That is so good. That is so good. He's actually got Gungnir now. That's so cool. They listened, dude. They listened to the feedback. That's so cool. His armor is a little bit more interesting now. It doesn't have the straight like Lorica segmentata thing going on here. It's now like kind of got these waves going on. Yeah, the way they did the face, the way they did these birds, this background with the art, aura. This is some major God of War going on right here. This is great. 10 out of 10. Looking at Loki next. The new version of Loki that we got in Retold looked a little bit off, just a little bit, I don't know, he's smiling, he's a little bit too realistic, he's buff as hell, he's got these big ass shoulders, he's been going to the gym, and then this like ghost wolf behind him just looked weird, and I kept on asking like, what is this a reference to? Is this a reference to the fact that he transforms? Is this a reference to the fact that he gives birth to Fenrir later on? Or what? I don't know what's going on here, I don't know, but the okay. I don't know how I feel about this version of Loki. It's a lot less AI generated feeling. This one looks a little bit too realistic, like photorealistic, so it felt uncanny. This one looks more illustrated, looks more painterly. I don't know. This looks like a mobile game character for like kids, like almost like a chibi style version of Loki. He's too cute. His proportions are just too cute. It's weird. And then they kept the ghost wolves. Now there's a second ghost wolf. I don't know what that is. I don't love this. This is not Major God stat. This is like mobile game tutorial guide like status. It's just. Finally looking at Scotty. Scotty for me always gave kind of like an Evanescence feeling. Did anyone else ever get that vibe? A lot of people were complaining about how the retold version had a floating bow. The bow wasn't really attached to anything. So we'll see if they actually fixed that here. Whoa, interesting. Okay, so the bow's still kind of floating in midair. I never felt like that was a big issue personally. She's kind of a thicker woman, right? They made Scotty a lot thicker. I personally love seeing more body types depicted, especially for female characters in Age of Mythology. I think this one's cool. Like it's illustrated. It doesn't have that kind of like photorealistic kind of glossy feel that the previous one had. Lastly, we are taking a look at the Atlantean gods, starting with Rhea. I always complained about the original version of Rhea, just looking very, very boring. You can't really tell anything about her other than like Xena warrior princess. The new version of Rhea, she's got the lion motif. Rhea historically was associated with lions. You see statues of her with 2 lions at her side, sitting on a throne. In general, I like this one. It still kind of has that uncanny look that all the retold arts had, but it was all right. It was a cool direction to go in. The new version of Rhea, whoa. I'm trying to think about how I feel about this one. I'm trying to compare these two side by side. I think I might like the previous version of Retold's Rhea better, actually. Like, the lions are definitely more illustrated. You can kind of see the sketch lines here. But then Rhea herself is just a little bit generic looking. She almost looks like young Alicent from House of the Dragon. I don't know if anyone's seen that show before. This just looks more like Greek, I guess. This looks more like English. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just being racist. I don't know. Moving on to Atlas. Now, everyone knows what Atlas looks like. Previous retold version of Atlas looked really constipated, and his finger got cut off down here. I'm not sure what the hell happened there. If he's holding up the world, then what is holding up him? This is like some crazy rock. Okay, looking at the new version of Atlas, he's angry. Why is he so angry at me? What did I do? This is kind of cool. Where his hand is touching is like kind of cracking the earth a little bit. Oh my god, what is that thigh? Jesus Christ, this guy does not skip leg day. That's crazy. And he's got like a little towel for the gym. It's definitely better. It's definitely better than this version of Atlas. His head it just accentuates how awkward this head position is. I personally like the original version of Atlas even better. His head here doesn't seem like it's actually resting on the earth. It seems like it's in front of the earth, which feels a little bit awkward. Whereas this guy, it feels like he's using as many points of contact as he can, trying to hold up this globe here. Moving on to Thea. Last time I pointed out that the original version had a little bit too much skin showing. In the new version, it looks good. It's just a little bit generic. They kind of kept the same helmet motif, but it's just not giving anything. It looks kind of like it's from a mobile game. The new version, whoa. Okay, the new version is a lot more goddess-like, I guess. They really emphasize the star kind of motif. Her headpiece is completely different now. That's interesting. They copied the headpiece 1 for 1 previously, but now they completely changed it. I don't hate it. It's all right. Moving on to Helios. Okay, this was one of the biggest offenders in the retold arts. My biggest issue with it, well, I had quite a few issues with this, but like the spear is really awkward. His face is really awkward. The hand here is really awkward. This horse is like weirdly smaller than the other horses, even though it's closer to the camera. And then his body is too large for this chariot based on the current proportions. So all in all, just kind of a mess. This piece, not gonna lie. Let's take a look at the new one. This is this almost looks like an anime character. Am I crazy? The way it's shaded? I like it. I like this a lot. The sun spirit looks really good. This looks like something Leona would use. The sun kind of haloing behind his head, really cool. I like it. This is a much better version of Helios than we had previously. Moving on to Prometheus. I previously complained about how Prometheus looks like a raging barbarian when he's more of like a tragic artist kind of character. And then the more recent one, oh, whoa. What is he looking at? That's the main thing I'm wondering. He's looking so intensely at like this character over here, but I'm not sure why he would look so intensely. He's like offering his hand, and I can't tell if his hand is in front. I think it's behind this clay figure over here. Is he like trying to bestow life, but he like really wants to give it to like this person in particular? That's why he's looking so stern. Just based on the lighting though, I feel like this one actually fits the kind of painterly vibe that Age of Mythology Retold's kind of going for now compared to this one. The way it's shaded almost looks like something out of a comic book in this case. Moving on to Hecate. I talked about how the original Hecate didn't really quite get that witchy feel. She kind of looks more like an 80s porn star actress, whereas the retold version of Hecate I gave a lot of points for, even though it kind of has that like a little bit uncanny realistic sheen going on with it. Just the depiction, the motifs here, the fact that they depicted her with 3 faces and 6 arms, amazing. All these motifs, absolutely 10 out of 10. The new version of Hecate, whoa, okay. So the new version of Hecate looks very, very, very similar to the previous one. In fact, this character right here, this face actually looks 1 for 1 like the previous face. I think they just copied it over and then illustrated on top of that. Her face is pointing upwards now, which looks a little bit more confident, I guess, whereas this one looked a little bit more stern. Oh, there's a snake wrapped around her neck too. I didn't even notice that one. They really did not make changes to this one. This is solid. They recognized that the previous one was already good, and they just kind of did a little bit more of a illustrated styling to it, and moved on. All right, cool, love it. Hyperion is next. The original Hyperion always looked a little bit plain looking to me. The new version of Hyperion, I mean, there wasn't too much inspiration to work with in the first place. He's kind of got the sun motif. Hyperion's kind of associated with the sun, so it kind of makes sense. Just a little bit of an awkward pose, but it's not too big of a deal. The new version of Hyperion looks like Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I don't know how I feel about this. It's okay. I think I could have taken either one, to be honest with you. This one's pretty good though. It's not bad. Next, we're taking a look at Leto. The original version of Leto had her with a hood, which kind of evoked that kind of she's running away from something. But for folks who don't know the mythology, it just kind of looks like she's a sneaky kind of assassin-y kind of character. The one that we got in Retold definitely evoked her motherly feel. She's more of a mother goddess than anything else. So the fact that she's got Apollo and Artemis over here, I didn't hate this one, although some of the fingers just looked a little bit awkward. But this one was overall pretty good, actually. Looking at the newer version, they also kept the motherly vibe. I really like that. I would say like they're not quite looking into each other's eyes. Leto seems to be looking down a little bit like almost at his clavicle a little bit, and his eyes are also not quite looking at the right place. The faces are a little bit awkward. I feel like the old version of the retold Leto actually looks better. Moving on to Oceanus. My only issue with Oceanus here is that his pose, I don't know what he's doing with his pose. He's like, it kind of looks like we're looking at him through the aquarium and he just smacked his face against the aquarium glass. That's what this pose is giving for me. Looking at the new one, oh, what the heck? This is like a very comic book looking version of Oceanus. And his face kind of looks like Mr. Nimbus from Rick and Morty or something. I don't know. This is an interesting direction for them to go in. They really changed up the design for this character. I think it's a net improvement. At least he doesn't have this like funny looking pose. It just looks a little bit too much like a modern comic book character. Moving on to Kronos, I've always had an issue with this like rocky lava aesthetic that he's got going on here. It just doesn't quite fit the Titan of Time. Looking at the new one, they really leaned into that. Oh my God. Again, this looks like a comic book character. If you shade him orange, he looks like the Thing from the Fantastic Four. They've got him chained down in Tartarus. That's really cool. It definitely looks a lot better than the previous retold version. That's for sure. This one, I don't know what the artist was trying to do with this one. It just looks a little bit like PlayStation graphics. It looks like they went for an in-between with regards to like having fire on the inside of him. Now there's like fire, but it's also kind of like this neon pink coming out of him, which is what they decided to do in the previous retold. So it's a little bit of a mix. The little blue crystals here is kind of an interesting call out. I'm pretty sure that the Atlantean Titan actually has blue crystals adorned on his head, so that might be where that inspiration is coming from. Is it better? Yes. Is it Kronos? Not for me. Looking at Gaia, the new version of Gaia went for that Groot look. A lot of people found that controversial. I personally felt like it was an okay direction to go in. The newer version, oh my God, they really emphasize this like belly bulge right here. This is a little bit too much. This like pose is almost sexual. The way they framed her body here is like a lot sexier compared to the previous version of Gaia. And the face is also a lot more like model looking. They emphasized her cheekbones, and she has lipstick on now. Did she have that? Yeah, previously she had like just regular wood lips. Now she has lipstick. It's definitely looking a lot more like a comic book character this time around. It's okay. I personally think the previous retold version would have fit just fine. I don't know if it needed to change all that much. They gave her dreads too. That's an interesting direction to go in. And finally, we're taking a look at Ouranos. The classic Ouranos has the armor and the old man look. I really like the retold version of Ouranos. The way his beard and his hair is kind of flowing. This is a really cool depiction of Ouranos, and the sky background is just awesome. It definitely doesn't fit the new illustrated look that they're going for, but this looked really cool. And Ooh, yeah, I would have to go with this version of Uranus. I think I don't know if I'm a fan of this. He's definitely got a bigger back over here. His belly's kind of coming out. His pose is a little bit dramatic here. His hair and his beard also just don't like evoke the same kind of majesty that this dude is majestic. This dude is awkward, is all I have to say. This background is really cool. They kind of went for that like interstellar black hole kind of cloud. You know, it would be cool if the devs actually like let us choose, like mix and match. Like, do we want to go with the retold? Do we want to go with the original? Do we want to go with the new ones? Because right now I would much rather go with the original, or the previous version of Uranus over anything else. Okay, well, that is all of the gods once again. Last time I asked myself why the hell I would go through all 48 gods. I just did it again. I think this video is at least an hour and a half's worth of footage to edit down. Hopefully you guys got a sense of all the new artworks. I think overall it is a marked improvement over what we had previously. Some individual art pieces, especially like Uranus for instance, just are a bit of a step down. Overall, pretty happy. I'm very, very impressed with the fact that the devs actually went through the effort of redoing all the art after they heard the community complain so much about this. I'm quite frankly amazed that they were able to get artists who were able to pump out these new pieces within the span of what, like a month and a half since they got the feedback. That's crazy. I don't know how they did that. They worked in record time. I guess the only question now is, what do you guys think? I would love to hear your guys' opinions on these new art pieces. Do you like them better than the previous Retold? Do you like them better than the originals? What do you think you're going to be playing with when you finally get your hands on Retold? And were there any other details or opinions that I missed? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely consider giving it a like and a subscribe. That's all from me. Stay frosty, stay chilly.